Hey, how's it going? Right, let's step it up a gear. I'm Andrew. This is my rabbit, Bertie. He is Mr. April 2014 in the Bath Cats and Dogs Home calendar. And he actually knows quite a lot about streams, it turns out. Rabbits, I guess it's in their evolution to understand streams. Anyway, it's not RabbitJS, it's RobotJS. So, as David mentioned, I run the London Node user group. We just had our second birthday. We're about 125 people every month. So it's a fairly big user group, and it's brilliant fun running it. Also organizing the Great British Node Conference, which is Tuesday. So it's like 5 days' time. So I'm slightly freaking out about that. Just last week, I was invited to join the Nodecopter core team. Keynote transitions, I love them. So I've been, oh, hold on, sorry, going to change this up a little bit. Previously at LXJS, Felix introduced Nodecopter to the world as in the form of the AR drone library. And then what followed that was a number of events that spread across the world, drones slowly taking over at least small parts of the world. And then we have at least 4 more events, including one in a country quite near here. So for the past 7 months or so, after being introduced to Nodecopter by Felix, robots have basically been my life. More like all these robots have been my life. Very lucky to get companies sponsoring me, or sponsoring the Nodecopter movement from the London user group, and they enabled me to get a fleet of drones which I could then take around the country, the UK, to introduce people to flying robots. So I put on events like this in Bath, and this one in London. Overall, I've put on 8 events across the UK, introducing about 400 developers to programming flying robots, all at basically 0 cost, thanks to the sponsors, and then spending numerous hours fixing the AR drones. As you can imagine, they very easily get smashed to pieces. I just wanted to take a minute as well to thank all of the sponsors that made that possible. Without them, there would be no Nodecopter in the UK. And I'm not sure if there are any tickets available, but maybe there are. Check out Nodecopter PT. Tomorrow, we're going to be flying robots, and they're going to be invading Portugal. It's going to be amazing. So I wanted to share a few hacks. I haven't got any live demos because these hacks are a little bit more crazy, and apparently the roof is really historic, and I wouldn't want to destroy that. So one of the hacks was to use QR codes to encode commands into a QR code and show it to the camera of the drone. The drone would then unwrap that and execute the command. It was fairly effective as long as the light was in the right place, as the drone's cameras aren't particularly good. And I think what's interesting about this is probably the only valid use for a QR code in the whole world. Next up is, let's get a bit more audio on this. My glamorous assistant, Julian, helped me hook up a dance mat to a drone so that you could control the drone through the medium of interpretive dance. So a dance mat is basically just like an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. So it's really easy to plug it in, use a Node serial port, and read back the values. We then map regular arrows to say go left, right, forwards, backwards. If you jumped on 2 arrows at once, then you would get flips or other crazy dance moves. Line that up with some Gangnam Style, and you've got yourself an internet hit. It's my favorite bit. Gangnam Style. Game over. And one of the other favorite hacks that I hooked up, this was kind of building on top of Max Ogden's Connect hack, which was based on Pedro's OpenNI library. So I'm using my arms to, I love the guy in the back. It's like flying robots. I don't care about flying robots. Controlling the drone with your arms, but also being able to have it support kind of gesture-based things where if I jump in the air, it would register that my head had moved a significant amount and make it flip. And also, you notice my freakishly long arms make a really accurate controller in front of the Kinect. Sometimes, though, you will lose the connection from the drone due to Wi-Fi interference. It just ignores you completely. So quite cool. And there's lots of these kind of hacks where you can hook up a controller of some kind to make the drone do basically following commands from what a human is doing. And I like to think of this as QoS, or quadcopters as a service. So when you have an API like Nodecopter, which is incredibly high level, you don't have to worry about the technical details of the physics or the mechanics involved. You can integrate it into an application in almost as much kind of the same way as you would with any other web service. So you could potentially take any Hack Day project and bolt on a quadcopter to make it 6 times more awesome. That's a statistical fact, I believe. One of my favorite hacks taking that into account was a Travis build monitor. And if you broke the build, the drone knew where you sat and would just fly at you to punish you for breaking the build. Kind of hard to get that back into a demoable form after the first time it's crashed, though. So one question I get asked a lot is, why do I do this? Why do I drive around the country with a van full of robots and spend my weekends running events where I make no money and basically just never sleep because I'm always fixing drones? For one thing, they're flying robots, programmatic flying robots. Like, why would you not want to do this if you had the opportunity to? And then they say, oh, yeah, but don't you get bored of them? They do the same thing all the time. Like, no, they're flying robots that you can control with code. This is amazing. You've got some serious first world problems if you get bored of your flying robots, let me tell you. So I have a serious answer to this as well, but we have to go backwards a little bit to when I was at university. Something that I don't really advertise is the fact that I have a degree in robotics and automated systems from the University of Plymouth. Because I don't actually really use it in my day-to-day work at all. It's, as a web developer, it never really was useful to the work that I was doing. How I got into this was basically through a show called Robot Wars. So as a teenager, who's heard of Robot Wars? Yes, brilliant. As a nerdy teenager, this was my absolute dream, to build robots to fight each other and watch them smash themselves to pieces. And a degree in robotics seemed like the perfect thing to do. If you haven't seen Robot Wars, these are 2 of the best ones. Chaos 2, particularly awesome. But they're basically just remote control killing machines. They don't have any built-in intelligence. They're just like remote control cars with axes or spinning blades on. Robotics is actually, when you get into it, especially at least my university course, there's a whole host of things that they expect you to learn before you actually get to play with robots. And it's really just a trap, because everything is advanced maths. And then when you do eventually learn enough advanced maths, after about 2.5 years, They go, now you can observe this robot behind some perspex and watch it pick up a block and put it over there. Oh, how fun. What a waste of my life. And Nodecopter basically flips that on its head. It says, let's play with robots. Let's do crazy shit with robots. This will be really fun. And then when you actually start playing with it, as Jill said, there's certain things you don't understand, or you run into the physical problems with hardware, which would never exist inside of a nice, clean environment in your terminal or in your browser. So then when you run into these obstacles, you can start to learn about control theory or about different computer science elements to be able to get past those problems. And then you end up being tricked again into learning advanced maths. But you're doing it to make the robot do something even more crazy rather than learning the theory. And then if you don't get bored of the theory after 2 years, actually then going, OK, well, now let's see what your theory does when it's attached to a robot. And what made this really, really clear to me is when I took Nodecopter to Coder Dojo. So Coder Dojo, who's heard of Coder Dojo? That's a reasonable number of people. Coder Dojo is a global collection of events that are run by volunteers to teach kids programming and teach them about technology. It's run a lot like the set of Nodecopter events, where there's basically a set of guides for people to tell them how to run the event, but there's no process around it, really. It's like, as long as you get an OK from the core team, then they let you go off and do whatever you like. And we had 25 kids, aged between about 11 and 15. They came with their parents, and we said, OK, well, let's hack on some drones. And they knew just enough JavaScript to be dangerous from, which I think is what most people know, from doing previous Coder Dojos. And then we basically set them off, and we said, OK, let's first of all have a play around with the drones inside of Voxel, which is the browser-based Minecraft project, except for there's a drone inside of it, and it has the same API as the regular drone, so you can copy and paste example code into the either into this command here, or you can just open up the web inspector and just run stuff in the JavaScript terminal. So that kind of got them started, got them understanding the API without breaking or killing anyone. And then we actually just let them loose on it and said, OK, well, let's go wild. So we've got a short video.
One of the recommended activities in London from mykidsy.com.
So you can see there's kids over in the corner. They're making controllers from makey-makeys and tinfoil. There's people who are flying them around with different kinds of controllers, or even having them go programmatically. There's girls setting up ballet moves and like a dance routine with them. All kinds of things which, within a couple of hours of playing with these robots, they're able to like see the real result of the code that they're writing in the physical environment around them. So basically, this blew my mind. This is like, oh my God, these kids have done more in Nodecopter than I've done, like in a couple of hours, than I picked up in my first 2 events. This is crazy. Their brains are like sponges, and you just pour knowledge into them. This is how I think we should be teaching robotics to kids, and we should be getting kids involved in robotics from a much earlier age. Rather than waiting until they get to university, we should be introducing them at a kind of a very basic educational level, because there's so much involved in robotics from all different facets of... This thing's making all kinds of noises. Give me a second. Is that any better? Maybe a little. That they can essentially learn about all different kinds of things and then relate them back to something that they can physically see and interact with. And that can create a much more engaging learning experience, rather than like learning about maths and then maybe one day being told, actually, the maths that you learn can be applied to make a robot follow your face around the room. Things like that in school would have made me much more excited about the stuff that I was learning. And in case it wasn't obvious, the future is made of robots. We have a few robots around today. You give it 5, 10 years, robots are everywhere. Like, we're living with robots. So we really need to be able to have the next generation and the generation after that to be completely understanding of robots. If we don't teach people now about the issues behind robots, the social and technological implications of having them, and how that actually they're really not that hard to control and to understand, and that it shouldn't be magical to them, because otherwise robots are going to be controlled by corporations, and it will be seen as a black box where you can never interact with it. And really, they should be learning how to tame these robots and control them for themselves. I think it's our responsibility as robotics developers and developers in general to help them use robots for the good of humanity rather than being slaves to robots. So that's a little bit preachy. What's next for Nodecopter? So we could continue to do regular Nodecopter events, but I'd like to see us kind of mix it up a little bit. Only a week on the core team, and I'm already like, yeah, let's change things. So definitely want to do some more of this kids plus Nodecopters, because it's super exciting, and I think it will make a real big difference. So it doesn't have to be called Nodecopter Flight School, but some kind of, maybe just working with the kids coding clubs like Coder Dojo and Code Club in the UK to try and get robotics. Maybe even like trying to get robotics as part of a school curriculum would be a really interesting challenge. One other thing that I'd really like to do would be drone racing. So I'm a big motor racing fan, and I could just imagine setting up a two different league event where you have human-controlled and you have autonomous. This is a rally super special stage where they would race 2 rally cars at the same time, but around 2 separate courses, or the course would be kind of they'd start halfway around so they wouldn't hit each other. You could do something like that with Nodecopters and big inflatable obstacles where for the human controllers, they just have to build the best controller to race around. For the autonomous class, they'd be given time to test out and learn the course, and then they just have to press go and then not touch it. And the fastest one, or the one that successfully makes it around the course, is the winner. And adding a little bit of a competitive element to this kind of event would potentially help drive technology forwards. And I'm sure you've all heard of the Google car, which came from the DARPA Challenge, which was a competitive event to try and make autonomous cars be the fastest to go around a treacherous circuit. First in the desert, where it's a little bit safer, and then when they successfully did that, to go on, I think even, Raquel, did you work on one of these? Yeah, see? We've got a robot overlord in the house. And you imagine the kind of innovation you could drive through an event where people actually actively are kind of in a very healthy, competitive environment, no kind of destructiveness, or especially controlling the amount of money that would be poured into it. Otherwise, it could spiral out of control. So that's 2 things that I'd really like to see Nodecopter kind of do in the future, potentially. And I have one more thing. So I couldn't just talk about stuff that I potentially like to do without actually talking about something that I've done. So the makers of the AR drone, which is what we use for Nodecopter, recently brought out a GPS add-on module. So the firmware on board the AR drone is proprietary. We could use different drones which had open source hardware and software, but most of them are a little bit more destructive and not so safe to fly in an indoor environment, and potentially a lot more expensive to fix. So that's why this was quite interesting to me, because it would mean we'd have real positional feedback for the drones. But they have not documented this at all. The data exists in the API, but Parrot have not updated their documentation at all. So it is a complete mystery. And I've spent the last few weeks hacking on this. And I'm happy to say I have some success. But this doesn't exist, so let's ship it. So I'm just going to run this command, And hopefully, if my Wi-Fi doesn't crap out, shippage! Oh, sorry. It was good for me. Hey, there we go. I enjoyed that anyway. So that's a new version of Node AR, of AR Drone, the module. You can install that now. And if you've got a GPS flight add-on, which is about £100, so they're fairly expensive. I've lost my mouse. Ah, there we go. Then you'll be able to read back latitude, longitude, the number of satellites it can see, its approximate altitude, and other kinds of data. And then, because the drone doesn't have much battery life and therefore range, you don't have to do very complicated trigonometry to work out if you want to fly from one direction to another. It's basically very simple trigonometry rather than worrying about the curvature of the Earth, because the drone can't go far enough to be affected by that. So I've made a project which is built on top of this version of the library that I've just pushed, which I'm calling AR Drone GPS. So this is up on GitHub, and it's using LXJS and Google Maps to give you a map interface for basically controlling the drone autonomously, but also feeding back the video and showing you some data about it. So it has waypoint mode. You can drop pins on a map and join the dots together, and it will fly from one waypoint to the other, all the time showing you the video feed, as long as it doesn't go out of range of your laptop, obviously. It has a follow me mode, so if you connect your phone to the drone as well, you can fire up in a web browser on your phone a little controller which just emits the position of your phone, and the drone will follow you instead of following its waypoints and being updated as you run away from it as this four-bladed monster comes chasing after you. It also remembers its position where it's taken off from. So at any point you can hit go home, and it will fly back to where it took off from. Again, you get the video stream. And if you lose control or you think you're about to hit a tree, you can hit manual control, plug in an Xbox controller, uses the Gamepad API in the browser, and you can just take control with an Xbox or PlayStation controller to bring it back under control. Some things that would be nice to have. It would be nice to be able to have this on an iPad rather than having to use it on a laptop. At the moment, it's quite big and clunky. Also, the UI isn't particularly nice. It'd be great to have a photo button just to snap photos and save them, or even just upload them straight online. There's a library written by Laurent Echenu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, called AR Drone Autonomy, which is really exciting. It uses much more advanced robotics knowledge to generate a feedback system to take away some of the kind of skittishness of the drone and feed back a very smooth motion. And I'd love to get the GPS integrated with that, so that if you did lose your GPS or the signal wasn't very strong, you would still have a nice feedback loop to ensure that it continued to move smoothly rather than suddenly fly off across the city because the GPS says, oh, I'm over there now. And then if we want to get really crazy, we can actually, this software has no dependencies that couldn't be installed on the Linux that runs on top of the drone. So you could actually run this node server from the drone, and then when you create the waypoints will be set on the drone, and you could hit go, you could close your laptop and watch it race off without worrying about Wi-Fi interference, and you could record the video straight onto your USB stick plugged into the drone, and you've got basically a semi-professional surveillance machine or kind of a nice aerial photography machine at a very low cost compared to the £1,000 items that you can buy. So that's up on GitHub, and that's about all I've got. This is a cat taxidermied into a quadcopter. Thank you very much.